Hello, Ramya. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm very excited. It's our first podcast.
Yes, super excited because we are kind of free balling the whole thing. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. So let's start with the context, maybe. Why did we want to do this? How did this conversation come, and why are we doing this podcast?
Oh, the podcast or the topic itself?
The podcast.
The podcast? Well, I think we chat a lot about a lot of things, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's probably a useful thing for anyone to actually be involved in these conversations because I don't think the topics that we talk about are so atypical that people might not find interesting, but I feel like it's quite relevant and people might actually enjoy listening to our raw thoughts.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's what it's all about. Both of us sharing our raw thoughts and brainstorming together, and yeah, and just putting out there in the world for people who might find it useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's. So, what's our topic today?
Yeah, the topic today is future of web. And just to give a little bit of background as to why we decided to talk about this topic is because both of us actually individually saw the startup that's currently run by ex Twitter CEO or ex CEO Parag, and his startup was something along the lines about redefining or redesigning web in the next generation. It's not Web 3.0, definitely not Web 3.0 because they did not use that word. They definitely did say that it's the current web, but they are reimagining you in the world where there's AI. And if I remember it correctly, Brack said it's not a great startup. No,
No, I did not say that. No.
well, you said something which was not like it sounded you made it sound like a less exciting startup than it is. And I said, well, it does sound like a very interesting startup, and that's how the
Hmm.
conversation started. Yeah.
Cool, cool. And also, I think to give a context, right? Me and Ramya for the past 4 months, we have been talking a lot about AI, how the future of world will look like, what things AI will be changing, what it will not change, is it hyped, is it not hyped. So we've been living in the future, like pretty much like a brainstorming how the future will look like. That means like it changes. AI is going to change every part of the world, right? So web is one of the topic that we were talking recently, and we thought it would be quite interesting to record the podcast talking about yeah, future of web with AI, with everything in the future, how it would look like. Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's get started with the discussion.
Yeah, I can
So,
maybe kick it off.
mm,
Yeah, that's
okay,
okay.
okay. Mm,
Yeah, I just wanted to first set the stage as to
mm-hmm,
like what do we mean by web.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, I think everyone knows obviously what internet is, what web is because we use it on a day-to-day basis. But if we had to go back to the basics and think about what are websites, I think a good analogy is probably imagining a library. I feel like there's going to be each book is same as a website. So there's going to be a lot of individual websites out there, and sometimes these websites can link to each other because where they refer to each other, so there's links between them. But in most cases, they're all like independent uh, pages, independent books essentially. So if there is no way of organizing the books, it will be really hard for people to actually navigate the space of web. And I feel like the way to organize the web is via links, and that is what Google does essentially to organize the web pages so that it's easy for someone who's looking for a certain book. They can literally search for a book, and then like it will say that it's in library. It will say that it's in this floor and on this aisle. But I think what Google does is actually get us directly to the web page. So I feel like that's a good analogy. And there are few entry points. I feel like yes, the Google is one entry point. It's not to say that Google is the only entry point. There are multiple entry points. If certain websites are quite famous, like Instagram or Facebook. I think in those cases they would be the entry point to the web, and from there if you like, or you maybe there's a product recommendation from there, so you click that and then you go to another page. So I feel like there are multiple entry points to the web, but I do feel like Google was the dominating player in this controlling this entry point of sorts. But I do feel like that's going to completely change with AI, and that is because I feel like the entry points to web has changed right now. So earlier entry points were Google, social media websites, or sometimes Amazon when you like to go there directly. But I feel like right now the common web pages that we go to is actually ChatGPT, Google Gemini, or Claude. When when you go to,
This perplexity.
yeah, or Perplexity, when you yeah, please. So, yeah, I might miss one or two, but I think you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, when you enter that, I feel like it's quite self-sufficient right now. That from Perplexity, for example, there are like few reasons why you would go to the original page. Only if you want to like validate something, or something is unclear. It's actually, even if it's unclear, you can actually ask Perplexity to define it more clearly. You don't. I still don't think you need to go back to the original site. But I think, especially from ChatGPT, I don't feel like you get out of ChatGPT. I think Perplexity, yes, you do sometimes get out of Perplexity because it usually throws with a lot of links, and it's almost like yeah, I feel like Perplexity is just a little bit better than Google, but I feel like ChatGPT is the extreme of what it can be. As in, you don't need to go and access the actual data, or the original source of data. And if you don't go to the original source of data, if there is no need for that, I don't see what's the incentive for the original writer of that data to actually publish it. Like, what is the incentive for them to publish it? Because earlier there used to be, oh, there's links, there's advertising, and they get paid. So they had their own monetization engine that worked, and incentives existed for them to post. Or sometimes they even had their own subscription mechanisms, right? So if they had their own subscription, and obviously publishing content, and they get paid for it, so it's almost like a very good loop that existed. So in the age of AI, when with conversational LLMs, I feel like that link is broken, and the incentives need to be defined. Otherwise, what they would do is all of them will put paywalls, and this is not going to be possible for these LLMs to actually query them.
Mm. I think there's another angle to see the same thing as well, right? There's a technological piece as well going on in this. If you take a step back, right, like if you take internet, probably like when Google was started, there's like a bunch of like a decentralized people are doing their own web pages and they have their own thing. And now that's a search problem, right? So now if you want to find something useful, let's say a zoo or like a local events, or like how do we, which colleges, what do they do, etc. So now there's a searching problem. You have to do either www.website.com, or that's pretty much the one way to do. I think that's the problem that fundamentally Google changed earlier, right? So it made it by keywords. You had like a search engine and you had like its own algorithms where it made easier to list down all the websites, and then like give the most useful websites to you, and that's how it's been working for the past 25 years. I think right now more that paradigm has changed fundamentally. We are no longer have like a software based algorithms where we are searching and just search, give the top 10 links. I think that paradigm is right now is slowly changing, and it's going to change forever to somewhere. It's like it's becoming much more smart, right? In AI, you no longer can just like, hey, give these 10 websites. You can right now ask in a conversational language, and the AI can like have a mix and match between all of these 10 links and combine those and put it in information, and give it all of them in like a particular essay. That's exactly what things like Perplexity is doing. So if you have like a technology that enables that you can do something like this, that means fundamentally the way in which web is operating is also changing. So you no longer need to list top 10 links anymore, because if you're like listing top 10 links, you're going to go into one of these pages, check next page what's going in, check. You no longer have to do that. Now AI can do that for you. Now the way in which you interact with web is no longer clicking the website. It's more like it's more conversational, and an AI agent or like a AI that can read it for you and then just give the summary for you. So I think that's fundamentally like a shift in how you view the web these days, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
I
change in
think,
thinking as well.
yeah, based on what you just said, another thing just came up. Why, if we think about this more, because
Mm,
earlier you said there used to be like top 10 links, right? And
mm,
so top 10 websites,
mm,
and it's up to you, the user, to choose which source of information do they want
mm,
to pursue
mm,
further. But I feel like right now, if ChatGPT or Perplexity is going to select, auto select
mm,
of the 10 websites, it's going to, it
mm,
has to have a mechanism wherein it
mm,
it it has to think that, oh, I will prioritize crawling or taking information from this website,
mm,
probably because it's more or probably it's more legit, or probably it's more
mm,
reputed, or like
mm,
what is the ranking like that it is using
mm,
internally to give you the response. Because a lot of
mm,
times you're querying, and we know for sure like the same news can be kind of written or interpreted in a different way
mm,
by different news channels, for example. So
mm,
if ChatGPT is going to give you an update about a news, so you're querying about a
mm,
news and it's going to select a version of the
mm,
reality. So what version would that be? So I feel
mm,
like it's even that is not quite clear right now as to
mm,
how are they doing it on their side, because it's ultimately
mm,
a ranking. um,
mm,
and the problem, there's an inherent problem actually, because earlier, if there are
mm,
like 10 links, I feel like even someone who's not the most well established, like if it's not Wall Street Journal, if it's
mm,
not New York Times, I feel like still there are other views and other websites that still
mm,
shows up and people can
mm,
go to that. But
mm,
if ChatGPT chooses based on reputation that, oh,
mm,
probably Wall Street Journal is the most legit one or the most truthful one because they reported, they have good standards of journalism,
mm,
etc. So if they choose Wall Street Journal, that's going to be one version, right? So you will never
mm,
the not so popular ones, like the ones that are not there in top three, for example, I feel like
mm,
they will forever be left behind. There is going to
mm,
be like a top three that exists right now, and that is
mm,
going to exist forever because
mm,
how is that a
mm,
new up and coming
mm,
news channel or a newspaper gonna get ranked highly? Like, how is
mm.
that gonna happen?
I, I think yeah, I think that's a quite interesting point. I think what we have right now is that the Google search algorithm, I think that's being replaced by the Perplexity or like a Chat GPT or like their own algorithms. Now you no longer have to do the search. You don't have to do the web crawl the way Google does. It can summarize those results. I think we have the technology established for that. So the question remains, but it's still when these AI bots are doing it, it's leveraging the existing search engine optimization done by Google or someone else's work, and it's doing it based on some prioritization, like which is the top three. It can be Wikipedia, it can do well results, but then they have their own algorithms to do that. So now the question is, and in parallel you have Google that has like a very good search engine algorithms to say that based on number of clicks, right, whichever is the most clicks get prioritized more, and also search engine optimization is like a well established thing in the past 10 years where businesses do what gets more clicks and optimize it based on Google. So now I feel like I think at this point it's quite mature to say that the technology to read from multiple websites, take it from there and summarize. I think that's pretty much there. But what is missing is the prioritization or optimization, right? Like, how do you choose which websites to take it from? And then, like, if you are a business, how do you optimize it? And what's the search engine optimization looks in the game of AI? I think that's a open question to be solved. Many companies, I know, like a YC company that's targeting it, but I think it's going to be the future of web is going to be, yeah, it's like there's so much things to be unsolved there.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be I mean, the way it can happen is I don't think you can't say that there might be a third party in between, like the websites
Mm,
and companies that or like model companies like OpenAI and Perplexity, and
mm,
that would be more like a marketplace maybe that's
mm,
interfacing between them. But I don't see why you need such a marketplace. For me, I feel like it could be a direct partnership between not a partnership or like interaction between the
mm,
LLM companies as with the end websites, because I think I've read somewhere that Wall Street Journal actually has an exclusivity with OpenAI, which means that I don't think Perplexity can query Wall Street Journal. So they have
mm,
an exclusivity agreement. So I feel like if there's going to be such exclusivity, then you know that, like, for example, it will turn that OpenAI will have a certain point of view. Perplexity will have a partnership or exclusivity with New York Times. If that is the case, then
Mm.
it's almost like a search engine of
Echo
New York
chambers.
Times.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a so I feel like the exclusivity seems quite odd to me because there should not be an exclusivity from what I feel like in the future of web. If I have to predict how it goes, I would say
Mm.
exclusivity doesn't make sense.
Mm. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, I was not aware of this exclusivity piece. So
Yeah,
I guess,
but I want to caveat by saying that it's possible. It's possible that it exists because Wall Street Journal is like, well, I need to monetize. I don't want my like they need to get paid. They need to pay their own employees, right? So right
mm,
now it's like a stopgap solution,
mm, mm,
so that it's they are still like getting money out of the thing that's
mm,
currently being published and it's being
mm,
used by OpenAI anyway, right?
mm,
So
mm,
they this is probably one way they are planning to monetize it, but still
mm.
exclusivity is something maybe. I mean, we
I
haven't
think,
both of us have not prepped for done our research, but I feel like at the high level, just knowing about the news doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, but I think web is much more bigger than like a top companies in some sense, right? Like, of course, you have like a newspaper news websites or Wikipedia or like a famous websites, and you can have like a individual deals for that. But how does it change the web itself? That's an open question to be answered, I guess. I guess the earlier the again, as I was saying earlier, the number of clicks is one metric to do it. What's the equivalent of number of clicks to for perplexity? For example, is it the feedback of the user's quality, or like how do you decide which is reputed or which is not? And if you don't allow users, if you act like an agent that kind of like abstracts what going in the back end and just gives the summary of what is the websites, you don't even have to click the websites. Now how do you, what's the reward mechanism? How do you know which websites are good, which is bad, and who
Yeah,
decides if not for clicks? I think that's a
yeah,
interesting question that's to be solved. I
yeah.
think that's not been solved yet. Yeah.
Exactly, and I feel like they have. I'm pretty sure there's a good current snapshot of the world, which
Mm.
they are probably
Yep.
using.
Yep. Yep.
And the question is, obviously, the world evolves, and like what is good now, it may not be good or the best
Exactly.
later. And I feel like how
Exactly.
will it evolve? So I think that's one thing. I think we can move on and talk about like other areas of web.
Mm. Maybe I think I want to spend little time on this.
Mhm.
I think this is what we've been doing so far. Like just based on our understanding, maybe do you want to make a prediction of what will the reward mechanism look like in the future? How it will do? Should I maybe go first?
Yeah, yeah, please.
I think I go first. I mean, I've not prepped for this. Let me just brainstorm on the fly. So I think how it will probably might look like is that um, I think there has to be like a reward mechanisms going into this websites by some mechanism or the other. I think the way in which how it can be is based on the quality of the answers. I think if users find that the quality of answers is not good, quality answers is good, and then there are ways to find that out, right? And right now it's a very simple like a report button, it's good or bad. But I think in the future, if it's much more interactive, and when AI inference is becoming much faster and perplexity kind of things is like a new search engine, I think it might look like much more seamless things like a social media where you track based on like how amount of time spent, amount of answers spent, which line you like, which line you don't like, and things like that. I think these kind of metrics can be used for feeding and saying okay, this website is garbage and this is not good. And I think that can serve as like a reward mechanism for search for from the point of view of the AI engine to search where do you query the data from, where you not query from, which is reported and which is not reported. In some sense, AI version of its own like a page rank algorithm, if you will. So I think that's one bit. I think on the other side, the bit on the consumer side is also again it's a marketplace, right? If you're making a website and if you find out that there's a supply and demand issue, right? Like if you have lots of queries that is going from your website to Perplexity or OpenAI, that means you can charge more as well. So that means your website is much more valuable, and maybe you'll be charging much more to take queries from your website, and that will establish a price. For example, if you are creating quality content regularly, that means that you can charge higher prices, and if you're not creating quality content, then your price is low. I think there'll be such a new markets that will be established in the future. So that's how I imagine the future of the reward mechanism to be the future of it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think there has to be user feedback, and I feel like I was thinking about the current interface. Sometimes I've seen that OpenAI actually has, when it gives a response to a prompt that we have, it shows like two versions of it, and then it asks us which one do
Mm.
you prefer.
Mm.
And that seems to be like a mechanism wherein a
Mm.
user can give a feedback and then it learns. But I think it's more about learning the style. I think that is the current need or the reason why they have what they have currently. But in the future, it won't be just the style of the output or the syntaxes or like something very UI specific. But I think it will be more than that. It has to be almost like a poll, like which
Mm. Mm.
do you think that this
Mm.
is uh, this is a
Mm.
legit answer? But
Mm.
I think that
Or
could
do
be
you
like,
believe this website?
yeah, do you? But then I feel like in that world, I feel like it's almost like a task given to the user rather than so if so, then it will give
Mm.
us like imagine like it will probably give us three summaries, right? Three different
Mm.
versions of the news, for
Mm.
example. For
Mm.
example, what about what happened with the Texas floods? Like,
Mm.
for example, because that's the current
Mm.
thing
We don't want
right
that.
now.
We don't.
Yeah, no, but if there's going to be like three versions from like three different websites, and it's going to ask us to choose. But I feel like it's not. It's even from a compute perspective for inference.
Mm.
I feel like that's a waste. And more than that, it's almost like from user. I think user wants answer. They don't want to
Mm.
be the one doing the processing themselves. If so, then they
Mm.
can actually go to then it's again back to a website, right? There are multiple
Well,
web links that you click, and you'll have multiple information, right? So it will be a subset of that implemented within
yep.
the ChatGPT interface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it has to be any different from the polling things you mentioned. I think that has already been done. I think Instagram regularly asks for, especially for ads, right? Is this ad relevant to you? Which ad is relevant for you or not relevant for you? And you see that in Reddit again. Have you
Hmm.
heard of this to give the tailored in? I think that's how it starts. And I think eventually, I think the algorithm will converge to something much more robust to say that it has its own mental model of like which is reputed, which is not reputed. And I think I don't think it's going to be that intrusive because I don't think it's fundamentally a different problem than what Instagram was facing earlier to show which ads are relevant, which one should you prioritize, and versus Reddit, for example, which subreddit is relevant for you. I think it's a
Yeah, but I
classical problem
think
that we have
I
solved so far.
not really. I disagree with that because
Mm,
when you think about like advertisements, for example, which is the
mm,
right product for someone
mm,
of your social demographic
mm,
backgrounds, I
mm,
feel like it is still like there's a you can make mistakes, there's going to be errors, and it's fine. Like
mm,
it doesn't affect your experience as the end
mm,
user because
mm,
Instagram is not. I mean, an ad being not tailored to someone is
mm,
not going to annoy the user as long as
mm,
what they are in there for the app, the core features of the app, if they are
mm,
happy with the core features of looking at the news feed or not news feed, just normal feed, friends photographs or
mm,
stories and reels, as long as that works well, I don't think user will be annoyed. But
mm,
because the core that's the core feature, the advertisements are not the core feature according to the consumer or the
mm,
end user. But I feel like in the case of ChatGPT or like
mm,
Perplexity, I feel like that is their core feature, right? To give
mm.
information, to give the information in the most concise and easy way. In that
Sure,
case,
but
I feel
mm,
like it cannot you cannot actually see maybe what you can do is use the
yep,
reasoning abilities
yep,
as a person if you but even I think every person with reasoning capability like you and I'm sure we also interpret the same news differently, right? So I
yep.
feel like even if you incorporate or integrate the reasoning aspects of LLM, I feel like you'll still end up with completely different responses. Like Anthropic Claude will have a different response
I
and
think
a different view of seeing it, and Google Gemini will have a different view, and OpenAI will have a different view.
I'm sure you can't avoid that because you see that in search engines, right? You have Google having potentially different view, Bing having different view, and then Firefox having different view. But I think what all of them have converged is that, which is scam websites. I think that technology we already have right now. I think Perplex is already doing a good job. Maybe leveraging the existing search engine optimization to do which is like a most reputed website, which is not. It has some extent. I think the challenge is to continue that and not borrow from the prioritization that Google has done and take that into its own hands and to, you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
And to do its own
yeah, I
algorithms.
see. I see that, but let's go back to the example of Texas flood. I think if you look at I don't know, like CNN, or I was watching on the
Mm,
website, and then they said that it's possible that it's because of the cut down in the, like, because of government efficiency, there were like a lot of layoffs, right? And they said that the cut happened in the weather organization, like the organization that tracks the
mm,
weather and gives warnings. And there was speculation, of course not speculation, no, an alleged story that it's possible that the warnings were not given because of that reason, like because of possible layoffs and and lack of people advocate resources. But I feel like the same news can be said that if you look at Fox News or any
mm,
other side of the
mm,
spectrum, they would say that
mm,
well, the warnings were given, and it's almost like I don't think it's because of the lack of warnings, but rather
mm,
lack of reaction or
mm,
some other thing. Like they can
mm,
say completely different reasons. I feel like
mm,
when you as a user query
mm.
about the Texas floods, what is it that OpenAI is going to say? Is it going to
I think
say, well,
that's
is it going to just give you facts about, oh, well, like certain X number of people are missing, X number of people were saved or rescued? So it has to kind of separate out
mm,
the facts of the
mm.
news from the interpretation or like anything that surrounds that, right? So
But
I,
I
no,
don't
but
think it
if
is. Mm.
do you think ChatGPT will feature of ChatGPT will then be reduced to a fact spitting machine?
I don't think so. I don't think it's about facts at all. Fundamentally, I don't think you can just like read out facts. I think you have to see the
Mm,
facts through some lens. So I do
yeah.
see that, but
Mm.
I don't think that's any different from the web, the way in it's currently working. I think we have to distinguish between two things. One is bias and the lens you through view the facts with, and is it like ideological or not? And there's like various ideological lenses to it. I think that's one aspect of it, and we have to distinguish this from popularity of the website, like which is more popular, who wants this, and which is more engaging. And I think they are like a
Yeah.
two separate
Yeah,
distinct,
but
they separate things, I
think
guess.
about popularity brags, I feel like if you look at the number of subscribers of Fox and number of
No,
subscribers
not
of
no,
CNN,
no. That's
it's possible that both of them come up as the most popular websites,
yes, I
right?
understand, but
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying we should
So how would
distinguish
you
both
make?
as
Yeah,
yes,
how do you think OpenAI should go about
yes,
selecting
yes.
it in that
I,
case?
yeah, I think that's why we should distinguish both as like a two separate problems. I think popularity is like a different problem, and bias is a different problem. I think
Hmm.
maybe let's start with bias. I think bias is, I don't think it's that difficult problem to solve. I think that depends on the prompt of the user. For example, if you have like something like a more neutral prompt, you can, it's already doing, I think it's a good job, it's like saying left leaning pages like CNN, their view is this, Fox News says this, and go, and so and so. And then if the user wants to continue, they can go into the certain thread, you can do that. Or if you want to have like a global session of like a, hey look, this is the kind of the news I want, then you can show the user towards specifically Fox News or
Wait,
CNN or
I
specific
feel
things.
like I do not understand your last part, which are you saying that the user has to verbally set a context, like a global context, saying that, oh, I am so and so, and I'm a
Yep.
left-leaning person, or I'm a
Need
centrist, or I'm conservative. Do you think it's
No,
the
no, no.
users
That's
have
not
to
what I'm
give
saying.
that? Hmm.
No, no, that's not what I'm saying. I think I'm saying that by default, if you give a prompt and you have no information about the user, you'll be giving a summary of landscape as it is without giving a bias. For example, it can say in one paragraph saying that Fox News' stake is this, CNN stake is this, and here's what it is. And Google does it all the time. If you search something, you will, if you are like in incognito mode or something, the first link will be Fox News, the second link will be CNN, and it gives that. I don't think in AI it's going to be that different, except that it's no longer links, it's just in a natural language. So I think that's a relatively easy problem to solve. And also, I think in terms of like, and if you give like a specific information, for example, if Google knows where you are, or it has your cookies tracked, it knows your account, then it will probably show you like a left leaning things or like a right leaning things based on what you
Yeah.
want. I think you
No,
can have the
I
equivalent
feel
there.
like, okay, let's get to this. I feel like in a situation where there are two opinions, like two binary opinions, I feel
Mm,
like ChatGPT will say like, CNN thinks this, Fox says that.
mm,
But imagine a situation where there are like five different viewpoints of the same thing. Do you
Mm.
think that it's the responsibility of OpenAI to actually like populate the response with like five different views, and then OpenAI will have its own view, and then that's so. Don't you think that's almost like a response overload and probably not the most useful?
Again, I don't think we need to rethink this whole thing because that engine already exists. I think probably it's worth
Like
clarifying that.
what? Like, could you
Yeah,
explain
it's
what you
worth.
mean it exists? Because I
Yeah,
feel like you
it's
refer to Google, but I've never seen Google say anything. I mean, if you are talking about Google AI overview, because Google generally
no,
just
no, no, no.
shows links, right? So what are you talking about?
No, no, no. That's not. That's not what I meant. I think. I think right now in the web, you're forced to prioritize like top filings. That's like a top filings, but which one goes first, which one doesn't go first. So there's a prioritization happening already. So we have to, I think, probably remember that the fundamentally the concept of search engine has not changed. I think it's more like a technological shift rather than the concept itself in some sense. I think Google's job is to give the top five websites, but then internally it's facing the same prioritization problems. Which one to prioritize? Should you give the user biased one first or not biased one? So that prioritization thing is happening. Except that it's more complex right now because of AI. So instead of like giving top five links, you have to give like a five paragraphs or saying this, and then like saying that which is there, which is not there. Probably ignore some not so popular viewpoint. So I think it's more of a technological problem than like a conceptual problem. It's almost like replacing the
Yeah, no,
algorithm, like a
I agree.
classical search algorithm with an AI algorithm. So I think it's not like a completely new problem that we have seen. And but that's why I wanted to also give like a technological lens to this. So I think it's for saying that I think we all what we spoke about earlier, like at 20 minutes ago, what we are saying is that the search algorithm, like whatever the Google's algorithm is there, that's been replaced by AI. Now AI can summarize all those this quite well. So now I think the AI companies what they have to do is also replicate the back end of this and think of like a new way to search engine optimization and the feedback mechanism. I think that's kind of and also again I think it's a technological problem of okay with the normal search engine that's how it works with the AI based search engine that how should it be what should the algorithms be what should the engine look like and how does it interact with AI. So I feel it's more like a yeah again like a technological problem than anything really.
No, I understand it's a technological problem, but I still feel like that problem is something that OpenAI has to tackle. That's the
I think
future of
so,
web.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, for
so
sure, for sure,
I
for
feel like
sure.
it could be replicating what Google did, or it can do something
Mm.
completely different, right? So
Yep.
you have a chance to explore that, which you did not have before. So I understand there is a status quo of doing search, what search engine is doing, but this is the future of web, so you can do it differently. You have an opportunity to do that.
Yep, 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 for sure, for sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. So cool. I think we explored quite a lot of topics in web in this podcast. We talked about started with I guess like we talked about various things about how AI changes the web, what's the reward mechanism, what's uh, how will the technology impact this, and what's the how will the future of web look like. I think. Cool. So I think that's all I have from my side. Anything else that you want to cover?
No, I just want to probably say that it's going to be very interesting, and I feel like the
Mm,
choices that product like a company like ChatGPT or Gemini or
mm,
Perplexity makes can be the core differentiator.
mm,
It's not like
mm,
all of them are just the same thing, but
mm,
probably it looks like that currently. But I still feel like each product decision that they make in
mm,
terms of this would be.
mm,
Uh, the core differentiation,
mm,
and that could
mm,
be like
mm,
make or break a product and could
mm,
define the future
mm.
standards.
Yeah, yeah. I think people have been talking about a lot about AI, how AI will change our life, how AI will be changing work, all of these things. But I think not many people are talking about how AI will change the web. I think the early seeds are there, but I think the next 10 years it will be quite interesting to see what happens. And as you said, which algorithms take into care, and do we converge into like a duopoly kind of a thing, or like a monopoly, or like do we end up with completely new paradigms of search, and what's algorithms look like? And I think, yeah, it's really quite interesting to see how it will turn out. All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for watching with us, and bye bye. And yeah, it was really fun talking to you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye
See you
bye.
next week.
See ya next week. Bye.